Without a doubt, the MCU has definitely dropped in quality since Endgame.
Oh, they don't make them like they used to!
But there are some projects that have actually been kind of decent, like Hawkeye.
This video contains spoilers.
Before I hop into the review, keep in mind this is all just my opinion. Share what you think about Hawkeye in the comment section down below, and without any further ado, let's hop right into it. So first of all, I think this series does a pretty good job of understanding that this is kind of like a sequel to Endgame, as it explores a little bit of the after effects with the blip, and with Hawkeye's trauma from Black Widow's sacrifice. But at its core, it's also very street level, which I definitely appreciate. I think a lot of MCU projects feel like they need to be bigger to be better, but this actually explores the streets of New York, and it also has a nice little Christmas vibe as well, and also just connects to a bunch of other different MCU stuff. It's also more than just little references, it's actually following up plot points from the Black Widow movie, just in terms of what they do with Yelena's character, and of course it connects to all that Daredevil stuff with them having Kingpin in here, and that's just kind of something I think most of the recent projects in the MCU have been slacking off on. I will say though, this show definitely feels like a little bit too slow at the start. It definitely gets better as it goes along, but it does start off a little bit more slower pace. And there are some pretty generic and predictable plot lines in here with what they do with Kate Bishop and Clint Barton. Basically with them being partners, where Clint decides it's too dangerous for Kate and she's like, no, I want to do this. And then he's like, no, we're not a team anymore. And then they split up and then she winds up coming back and saving him. And then all of a sudden they're a team again. That's definitely not peak writing. Stuff like that's been done a million times before. But I will say it is impressive how they have a lot of characters in this show and are able to balance it all out. So first of all, of course, you have Clint Barton, who's dealing with the trauma and also trying to protect his family. And there's this huge plot point of him wanting to come home to them by Christmas Day, which does kind of add to the ticking clock. Now, Kate Bishop in here as a character is fine, but I do think some of the stuff they did with her is just kind of that stereotypical young partner stuff, where she's like overly excited and obsessed with her hero and then makes a bunch of impulse decisions that wind up not being the best, but then she does better at the end. Earlier on in the MCU, they kind of did stuff like that with Spider-Man. It's also very similar to what they did with Ms. Marvel and the new Falcon. And so stuff like that, it feels like we're just seeing it over and over again with these different characters in the MCU. And also, she's basically the main character just as much as Clint Barton. As a matter of fact, I think she actually has more screen time. And it's not like she's a terrible character, but I do think Clint Barton is easily more interesting. There's some other big characters in here, like the dog, who is pretty forgettable in my opinion. Of course, you have Kate's mom, and then there's also her fiance, Jack. There's also this group of LARPers that are doing their role-playing and that kind of stuff, and they just wind up being in quite a few episodes of this series. Of course, Yelena plays a huge role in the second half of this series, where she's trying to kill Clint Barton because she just thinks that he killed Black Widow. But even though she's being driven by emotion and that kind of stuff, her personality still feels on spot, where she can be funny at times. And the thing that really surprised me the most was that she put hot sauce in the mac and cheese, which is definitely an underrated combo. Anyways, this series also introduced Echo into the MCU, and then of course all the henchmen, which some of them are actually pretty funny and memorable. And the big boss behind all this is Kingpin, which is just super cool that they connected it to the Daredevil series. Many people weren't sure before this if that was actually part of the main MCU timeline, but this confirmed it. So there's a lot of good street level action stuff in this series. I feel like there's just a good balance of it being over the top at times, but also kind of realistic. There's some good stunt work throughout here, and there's also some pretty unique stuff they do with like trick bows. And so it's done in a way where each action sequence kind of stands out. Overall, the cinematography in here is pretty decent for a TV show, and the costume design is also pretty good as well. You actually have Hawkeye getting his purple suit in here. Maybe one day he'll get that comic accurate mask. And not to mention, a lot of MCU projects recently have had some pretty bad CGI, but there wasn't really anything in here that I found too notable. Overall, the score in here is pretty good for television standards, but also like not movie level, one of the best of all time. And you also do have a nice Christmas soundtrack in here as well. My favorite, of course, has to go to the Charlie Brown song. So overall, I would say this is probably one of the better MCU projects in recent years. It just feels different. I like the street level vibe, and I especially like how it connects to other stuff in the MCU, but it's still not flawless. There's definitely some stuff in here that should have been different. Regardless though, on the quality scale of 0 to 100, I'll give it a 77%, and you might want to check this out if you're a fan of Marvel. If you've seen it, let me know what you think about it in the comments section down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.